Installing the motherboard. In this series, we're going to demonstrate how to build a computer without breaking it. Building your first computer can be very intimidating. Like, oh, okay, I don't want to break this thing. What am I doing? I got to make sure I don't do it. Like, I got to make sure I, don't break anything, stuff like that. Well, if you're feeling intimidated by building your first computer, then I understand. For these videos, I brought in somebody who knows a whole lot more about computer building than I do, who has a lot of experience. So how many computers have you built in your building?
30 or 40.
30 or 40 computers?
Yeah, I built the two I had for work. So
if anybody would know what to be careful of, how to not break a computer, it would be him. And speaking of knowing, this guy knows a lot about computers. Every so often it comes out.
I think there's 512 shaders in the 2400G. Is that what there is? Or is it 768? I'm trying to remember because...
I don't know, but it could be. I think he's fairly new to doing YouTube, although...
This is the ASRock B450. I have no idea what it costs.
He does that pretty well. Please welcome Brian!
So, probably the next thing is we'll drop the motherboard in, wherever that is, over here. Where's that plate?
The plate?
There's this plate.
This plate.
So you need to put that in here when we do that, because it'll...
right now or after you put that in?
It just makes a nice little nesting of...
Okay.
This is the ASRock B450. I have no idea what it costs.
It was on sale, I think it was about $70.
Yeah.
Let me see. I have the thing over here.
Is there a...
70 Canadian dollars, that is.
Yeah.
Let me see. ASRock B450. Oh, it was... No, it was... That's a different part that was 70. It was 110 according to this.
Yeah. So these ports...
I thought it was on sale for more than that. I don't remember. But...
I'm wondering if you need motherboard spacers for the screws. You might.
I don't know.
So sometimes it depends on the motherboard. It depends on the case, because you don't want the motherboard to sit with the case. So you have sometimes these little things, and what they do is they can lift it up off the motherboard.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, lift the motherboard up off the case, right? And then...
Oh, okay.
Just let me check it for a second.
One thing I heard in reviews and things, let me just double check what exactly it was.
Sure.
People were saying that they were saying that the motherboard standoffs, which is what you're talking about right now, on this case are easily stripped and not very good. And I don't know if sometimes reviews you don't know if they're right or not. So
yeah, no.
And it might be specific to which exact version. One didn't come through the making machine quite as well as another one.
Yeah.
But in any case, because of the 6-year difference, this is a 20. When did this come out? 2400G?
No, this year.
Came out this year.
Yeah, 2400G came out at the beginning of this year. Before they announced, I thought it was either the end of last year or the beginning of this year, because it was. I know it was the APU parts came out before the rest of the 2000 series, so they came out right before we saw the 2700 and 2700X and 2600 and all of those. Okay, so this is a 2018, the 2400G, and the Mac that I have was made in 2012. Yeah.
So because of the 6-year difference, this is a lot powerfuler.
Well, it should have been, if I was to guess, your Mac was probably 32 nanometers, and that's just me talking. Either 28, 32 would be likely where it would be. And that is 14 nanometers, so that's 28, 20, so it's at least a few die shrinks off, and that means that it'll essentially give you more, it makes the transistors smaller, so in theory they can give you the same power in a smaller space. It's how they do, like the PS4 Pro and those kind of consoles, and consoles in general. So when you come up with the slims on a console, typically they can do a slim because, like, for instance, with the PS3. The PS3, when it first came out, had the CPU and the GPU on 2 different dies, and they were 90 nanometer each. And then on the The first, so they got them both down to 65 nanometer, and then it stopped dying as much, and then they got both of them down with the slim onto a single, so both chips now, instead of being on two separate 90 nanometers, went down onto one 45 nanometer, and that was the slim, or the super slim. And then they could essentially make the same device, just as powerful, but consume far less electricity and get way less hot.
Okay.
And that's where all the slim devices come from, more or less, is die shrinking.
Okay, so if I can try to translate for those of you guys who don't know what all those terms mean, basically, when you look at the CPU, if you were to look at it on a microscope, actually, can you even see it on a microscope? I don't know, but in any case, it's got.
Okay, I can simplify.
Okay.
Basically, die shrinking is how they measure. Like, it's not really anymore. It used to be how big a transistor was. So when they say whatever nanometer, that's the size of a transistor, but it doesn't really work that way anymore. But it's like, essentially, as they keep improving fabrication, so the making of chips, they can make things smaller and smaller and smaller. And a lot of the biggest gains we have in terms of mobile and other things come from making these devices smaller. And by making a transistor smaller, they can fit more. Can you hold this for a sec?
Yes.
They can fit more transistors, which are switches, right?
Okay.
So
the transistors are inside.
That gives you your 0 and your 1 state. There's a band gap, and when they put a certain amount of electricity, a voltage through it, it'll go to this state or it'll go to this state. And then that basically determines whether it's a 1 or 0, and that's how it does its calculations. And it does it billions of times a second, millions of billions of times a second. The little thing flicks, and that's what determines frequency. So when you say your clock frequency, it's how many times those little things flick in a second. And then your die shrink is about how, essentially how big each of those little transistors are.
So how many of them you can fit in how small of a space?
Basically.
Okay, and the more you can fit, the more powerful your CPU can be.
Well, it doesn't work linearly, unfortunately.
But it is a factor?
Yeah, it's a big factor, but it's not like perfect, because I'd say as die shrinking is continued, we have essentially more and more wasted transistors.
Okay.
There's a lot more that they put in there, but they don't necessarily get the gains they used to get by just dropping in more transistors into the space.
Okay.
So, but anyways.
So there, that's explanation for you guys who understand the terminology and an explanation for you guys who don't understand quite as much.
Yeah.
So there we go.
It's my, off the top of my head, brief explanation. But yeah.
All right.
Yep. What do we got? Get these stupid things in here. Spacers. Pretty annoying. Yeah, it's just fitting them in, getting them to thread, right?
Right.
Don't even need to put all of them in. You never need all of them. You don't have a crazy like, this isn't a crazy overclocker board or anything, so.
Right. I think, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but it's
they rate different boards. So like across here they'll have your MOSFETs and your like your voltage regulators and things like that, and that will determine essentially how much electricity it can give a core. So when you buy cheaper boards or more expensive boards, the bigger thing you're usually buying is ability to dish voltage out to a device without blowing up itself.
That is not something we want.
No, you'll be fine. Okay.
So that's good that they're taking care of all that stuff. That's good. Right. So some of those, what you guys saw, let me see if I can get some better light on this. Maybe, possibly. Some of those screw holes that you saw he was doing things with were for the ATX motherboard, which is the bigger motherboard, ATX, and then there's the...
I did. They used the one for the ATX versus the micro ATX.
Yeah, there's... I think it was micro, or was it mini?
This is mini ATX. Micro ATX is much smaller.
Okay. But yeah, it's like this case fits two different sizes of boards, so that's the situation.
Yeah, so that's those ones. I got the important ones in. It's all good. So this just essentially...
So those things you just put in, basically the motherboard just sits on them, or does it have to screw in somehow?
The motherboard will screw in. You can see the holes. So those
like that hole
nest
right
into
there.
the case, right? And then the motherboard screws into them. Does that make sense?
Okay. So what's happening now, he's putting in the back plate?
This is just a plate, and it just makes your ports not as ugly. That's really all it does.
Okay.
So...
I heard something about it.
And it stops
airflow?
dust from getting into your
Stops
system.
dust from getting... Okay.
Well, yeah, which is impacting airflow. Yeah, because if this was all open, then what ends up happening is any air in the house, right, and things like that would just come in.
Right.
I should have put this in first. I don't know what I'm doing.
Let me
No
turn
electricity.
this on. There we go. Let's see. We can see this better. There we go. So there's the back plate that he's putting in right now.
Get in there.
Looks like it's, is it in? Or is it, not quite lined up?
There we go.
Okay.
That's like that.
Alright, excellent.
Okay. Do you have a bigger screwdriver?
Yes, I do. Oh, come on, button. Why is it? What's it doing? Oh, it's taking a picture. That's why the flash is going off. Okay, here is a bigger screwdriver.
Yes.
There we go.
You pull out more motherboard screws?
A lot more. Yes. Motherboard screws. Is that a specific type? Or?
Pretty sure they're the ones with the rounded tops versus the ones with the flat tops. Flat tops are usually case screws
Okay.
to mount like GPUs and stuff like that.
Rounded tops. There is one motherboard screw. I'm going to put that down here, I guess. And let's see. How many motherboard screws?
Looks like on this case you'll need around, let me see, 1, 2.
Okay, that's another one there, and now here's
a bunch of them.
here's another one there. Let's see about this one there. There's 3 of them.
The first screws you get in are the most annoying when the board's still not in place and it's pushing up against it. And then it gets easier when you get a couple harder stuff.
So the first screw is harder to get in.
Yeah. Well, you want to usually do diagonal screws across.
Okay.
Like this and this one, and then that one and that one, and then you go in between screws afterwards.
So one question that I have, and perhaps other people have, is there on the underside, is that what you call it, of the motherboard, is there anything that you have to be careful not to damage, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's basic because the circuitry is more or less printed on it, but this is not that magnetized.
Oh, I have a magnetic screwdriver actually somewhere. I think this is. If you guys can still hear me, if I have a bit for it, then it's magnetized.
It's just more of a pain.
There, try this one. It might work. I think it worked before.
It's gonna be fine. I just
Alright.
need to
Let's see.
make sure I don't lose the screws as I'm going. Come on, get in there. This mic is dragging.
Alright, that's one screw down. I'm gonna turn this thing on. Whoops, wrong button, that would be a picture. Alright, let's try that again.
Okay, there we go.
There we
There's
go.
the other screws.
There's 3 more over here.
Perfect. Can you get some more if there are any?
Yes, I can do that. Alright.
I
Screws.
usually have people watching me when I do these things.
It's always weird when someone's watching you.
Yeah. I'm treating it more like it's just you and I talking, but...
It is a... as far as video and stuff, you do get used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
So there are several more screws.
Don't think we'll need that much. But we'll use all the ones we need.
Alright.
Okay, so... put the chip in before we put the power into it.
Sorry, getting in the way.
No, we can put the power in, but we just don't want to actually plug it into the wall yet.
All right. So one thing that might confuse first-time builders, there's a motherboard standoff that's actually outside of the motherboard.
Yeah, it's just because I didn't realize it wasn't a full ATX, so I can take these out. We don't need them now.
All right. Are there different specifications of ATX? Because that is an ATX board, but I heard somewhere that they have different inch.
Full. There's I don't know. It depends on manufacturer too, right? Like.
Okay, so more about.
It's more. It's basically standardized. The. But yeah, okay, so motherboard's mounted. Might as well put the chip in before we have any power. So the big thing you're looking for when you